Welcome to today's Bible study. Today's Bible study is about Job. Job has a lot of lessons for people and Christians on how to deal with the trials of life, and he's went through pretty much the ultimate trial in his life, and compared to others, this is the ultimate trial that anyone could go through. So let's get started by turning to Job 1. If you are following along, where's my mouse? There it is. Let's see here. So we go to Job 1, and we'll start in verse 8. Job 1, verse 8. There we go. I found it. It's amazing. I can find things. Actually, I think I meant to write down. Oh, no, yeah. One. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and read. Yeah. I think that's, yep. So, and the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Then Satan said unto the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught? Hast thou not made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power, only upon himself put not therefore thine hand. And so Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, The oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and only I am escaped alone to tell thee. And while he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, The fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. And while he was yet speaking, there came another, and said, The Chaldeans have made out 3 bands, and fell upon the camels, and have carried them away. Yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. And while he was yet speaking, there came another, and said, Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, and behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and they smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Then Job arose and rent his mantle, shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground and worshipped, and said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. So here starts the trial of Job's life. Here God proves a lesson to the devil and to the world that there are righteous men that will, when faced with great trials, they won't turn on God and blame him for everything that goes wrong in their life. Here we'll look at one of the things that got Job through this ordeal. One of the things is wisdom. So we'll look at wisdom. We'll look at some of the other things that's helped Job through this situation. Let's go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all that you've given us, Lord. All the blessings that you've given us, and all the things that you've done for us throughout our lives, Lord. There is so much that we couldn't write it in a book. We couldn't write it in 2 books. There's so much throughout history that you've done, Lord, that no ink on earth, no storage device that's been created can hold all the story, the information, that you've done for us in our lives, Lord. From written word to the physics of everything to just all that you do, all the order that you maintain throughout the universe, and the clockwork that is, even the working of the planets, Lord. Please, Lord, just help us as we look at Job's life here, that we'd be able to get something out of it, and that we'd be able to maybe find out how we can go through trials and be successful, Lord. Please, Lord, just bless my mouth, bless my heart. Help me be able to only say what you'd have me to say, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okie dokie. So we go back to let's see here, verse 8, or the first part. You know, after Satan had talked with God, and after he went forth from God, he had a plan. His plan didn't start that day. He waited until all of Job's sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, waited for them to all be together, and then he struck them, struck the house with wind and destroyed them. There's four different events that the devil or Satan planned to happen all at the same time. And it took some time for him to put that all together for the right moment to be able to strike at Job, to be able to overwhelm him. The devil always has a plan for attacking us too. He's very organized and very, very, very scary. Very, he doesn't just do things on a whim. He's been alive for thousands of years. Let's see here. He always has a plan. Let's see. So the other thing is, he always tries to win against God in one way or another, and we can see that happen to Job's family. The possibilities. Let's see here. So Job's family and possessions were both targeted simultaneously. Okay, I said that. So the reason that he did that simultaneous attack is just to be able to completely overwhelm Job and get him to be able to mess up and trying to blame God, and to break up or break down again. So I started talking about my notes, but then I didn't look at my notes, so I'm kind of bounced between what I'm trying to catch up with, what I've spoken about, and not miss anything. So anyway, let's see here. Let's look at so we see that the devil had a plan just to try and absolutely overwhelm Job. And in 13 to 22, we saw all those plans unfold, and what we're left with were just a few servant messengers, his wife, and a few not so helpful friends that we will encounter later, one of them at least. And then, even though he had just lost all of his children, all of his wealth, and he did not sin or blame God at all. Today, so many people blame God for even just trivial things. And then when big things do happen, they're always like, why, God? Why did you let this happen? Many people try to, say that, oh, this was God's fault. This was because of God, and they don't even think about the devil. They don't even think about what plans and what you know the animosity the devil has for us, and it's the devil's plans that affect us. And sometimes it's not even the devil. Sometimes it's just a person wanting to be bad, doesn't want to be um doesn't want to believe that God is real, and so they do these awful things to, whether it's to try and draw God out, so to speak, whether they think like that or not, and they try to, do these awful things to try and provoke God to do something to prove himself to them. And that's just not how God operates. Sometimes he'll bring out um the baseball bat of righteousness and whack him over the head. But uh, God is filled with mercy, and he's filled with grace, and he gives people chances to try and turn to him. And it's up to the people to be able to realize that and find that out, that God has been so merciful to them. But people miss it, and they just don't want to believe, and they're stuck in their stubborn ways, and history repeats itself. There's so many stories throughout the Bible where wicked people do all this stuff, and then they end up losing in the end. Even if it seems like they don't lose, to on the worldly perspective, they lose very much in the spiritual aspect. Because the ultimate loss is finding that they had to spend an eternity in hell, separated from God, the Creator, the one who loved them so much, and they rejected him to the end. It's so sad to see when that happens. All right, so let's turn to Job 10, and we'll start in verse 14. So he, at this point, Job's already had some conversations with some of his friends. I believe in the chapter previous, he was also answering one of his friends. But here, Job's Job is willing to take the punishment and forego some forgiveness, because, let's see, we'll read verse, like I said, verse 14. If I sin, then thou markest me, and thou wilt not acquit me from my iniquity. If I be wicked, woe unto me. And if I be righteous, yet will I not lift up my head. I am full of confusion. Therefore, see thou mine affliction, for it increaseth. Thou huntest me as a fierce lion, and again thou shewest thyself marvelous unto me. So here within these verses, Job realizes this shows him with such wisdom and understanding that, if there was something that he did wrong, um, woe unto him. He knows that punishment for sin is a very serious thing to consider, and he knows how serious sin is and the consequences thereof. Let's see. And that's why. So when chapter 1 again, when God says, in verse, let's see, 12, verse 8, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. He realizes that sin has such consequences, and that's why he was righteous in the first place. That's why he did so much to be able to stay in good standings and in good graces with God. If you read the whole story of Job, there's it explains, how the sacrifices he does for himself, his family, and his children, because He wants to make sure that everybody is good to go. He does sacrifices for his children, even if there's just like a rumor about them doing wrong or whatever. He wants to make sure that his family is absolutely taken care of because he understands the gravity of a situation that sin can present. And um let's see here. So God doesn't tell him that it's a test uh and a uh so through this, God doesn't tell him that it's a test or to prove to the devil of Job's testimony. um when we go through a trial, it doesn't always mean that we have done something wrong. God uses trials and to show other people what we have got for him, and we burn brighter to be able to put the gospel out to people by showing them that we will still trust God even though we're going through our trials, going through tough times. Being able to go through a trial with a smile on your face, you that's even more powerful. Job, when he was going through all this, he wept and cried and stuff like that because of the pains being so great. And so even if you don't smile through your trial, um it's not anything to be worried about. You know, if you're able to smile through trial, even if it is something that's half as bad or just as bad as what Joe went through, that can just show better inner or more inner strength. But God designed us with emotions to be able to use them. So crying, Jesus wept. The shortest, one of the shortest, or it is the shortest and one of the most powerful verses in the Bible is Jesus wept, because Jesus is the man's man. And all this talk and kidding around of, oh, men don't cry and all that kind of stuff. Well, Jesus was our example of what we're supposed to be as men, and Jesus cried. And that goes to show that all emotion that God gave us can be used, and there's a proper place and a proper time for each and every single one of them. Jesus, when he got angry and overturned the tables in the temple because they were using it as a den of thieves, changing house, and buying and selling goods within the temple, and that was wrong, and he used his righteous anger to be able to throw them out. So whenever you have emotions, you can use them for good and righteousness, and keep from sinning, even though it be anger or sadness or anything else like that. If you take it too far and you go into like a taking it too far, acting on anger or whatever, that can lead to sin, putting too much into it. So let's see here. So given that Job was very confused and frustrated because he didn't understand everything that was happening, and it's no different for us. We can't see the big picture. We can't only God sees the big picture. And Job had to realize that too. Is he was confused here. Verse 15. I'm full of confusion. And he, we can see everything that was happening, but Job couldn't. He's kind of in the dark there. So he's going through this in the dark and with no idea what's going on. Let's see here. So Job 11. That's the chapter after 10, obviously. But his friend Zophar, the Namathite, he has a couple words for Job. So we'll go ahead and read to verse 5 to see what he says. See, then answered Zophar the Naamathite and said, should not the multitude of words be answered? Should a man full of talk be justified? Should thy lies make men hold their peace? And when thou mockest, shall no man make thee ashamed? For thou hast said, my doctrine is pure, I am clean in thine eyes. But oh, that God would speak and open his lips against thee. So here is supposed to be one of his friends, and he's calling him a liar. He's not being very helpful in this situation at all. We'll see him continue in verse 13 here, just to shorten it up a bit. Says, if thou prepare in thine heart and stretch out thine hands towards him, if thy and towards him is God, if iniquity be in thine hand, put it far away. Let no wickedness dwell in thy tabernacles. For then thou shalt lift up thy face without spot. Yea, thou shalt be steadfast and fear not, or shalt not fear. Because thou shalt forget thy misery, and remember it as waters that pass away. Thine age shall be clearer than the noonday, and thou shalt shine forth, thou shalt be as the morning. So here he's trying to be encouraging, saying that any sin that you have, you can just, get forgiveness for it, be washed away, water under the bridge, and then you'll feel so much better. I don't mean to laugh, but it's like one of those friends that, oh, you're going through such a rough time, and they have no idea what you're going through, and they try to help, and they don't even try to be like, oh, well, I don't really know what you're going through, but here's some advice that I can, throw at you. They just like, just like this guy, Zophar. It's like, oh, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you need to do, and just do it and you'll be fine, feel better. Giving these basically commands. Job is not helping. Not helping at all. Blaming him, calling him a liar, and just basically being a know-it-all. It's to show off his pride and to show off his knowledge and show off his pompous accusations about Job, and what he knows it all, and he knows exactly what Job needs to do. And then so we go to chapter 12, and this is Job making his rebuttal against Zophar and what he said in chapter 11. And we will read 1 through 7. And Job answered and said, no doubt, but ye are the people, and wisdom shall die with you. But I have an understanding as well as you. I am not inferior to you. Yea, who knoweth not such things as these? I am as one mocked of his neighbor, who calleth upon God, and he answereth him, and the just upright man is laughed to scorn. He that is ready to slip with his feet is as a lamp despised in the thought of him that is at ease. So here Job points out, like, I'm not, I have an understanding as well as you. I'm not inferior to you. I know all the stuff that you just said, and right here, he's, the way he feels as, and the way he's treated. I am as one mocked of his neighbor in verse 4, who calleth upon God and seeketh, and he answereth him, the just upright man is laughed to scorn. So whenever we go through trials and problems in our life, there's always going to be people who will enjoy it. It's kind of it's sick and twisted that people would laugh at somebody else who's going through a rough time. And the internet nowadays does not does not help the situation. It can make it worse, because more often than not, you're gonna have haters and people who they're at home, they have no life, or maybe they have a little bit of a life, but they get some sort of twisted pleasure out of tearing people down and just absolutely trying to ruin their lives, make them feel even worse than they already are. And they laugh at people who go through trials, especially people who are trying to do right and trying to do good stuff for the Lord and stuff like that. And that's part of our trial going through this life um is you know what little persecution that we face today. What we face today is not as bad as what people face back in the Roman time, where people were lit up on stakes as torches for lighting parties and stuff like that. Real persecution against Christians and stuff. So one thing that we can take from this is, you know, what whatever we go through in this modern day, as long as it doesn't get like totally out of hand, the persecution that we face cannot be really compared to some of the things that have happened in the past, the freedoms that were won for us, for people that have died for the Bible and died for um, us to be able to have what we have today. That includes also, the founding of America too. You know, there were a lot of people who fought for this country to be able to have it, and people don't understand that either. Um, so let's see here. We'll continue in chapter 12, verse 12. Yes, 12. It says, "With the ancient is wisdom, and in length of days is understanding. With him, God, is wisdom and strength, and he hath counsel and understanding. Behold, he breaketh down, it cannot be built up again. He shutteth up a man, and there can be no opening. Behold, wherewith the waters they dry up, and he also sendeth them out, and they overrun the earth. With him is strength and wisdom, and the deceived and the deceiver are his." So here, Job understands that wisdom comes from God as well as strength. And he says that twice, making it all that more important. And um, he knows that God is the ultimate authority in the universe, and the 22 and 23 also kind of shows just a small bit of God's power. Let's see here, 22. He discovers the sorry, a little tongue tied there. Oh, actually, let's do 20. Yeah, let's do verse 20. "He removeth away the speech of the trusty, and taketh away the understanding of the aged. He poureth contempt upon princes, and weakeneth the strength of the mighty. He discovereth deep things out of darkness, and bringeth out to light the shadow of death. He increaseth the nations and destroyeth them. He enlargeth the nations and straighteneth them." Um, so that's just being able to build up nations and take down nations, be able to strengthen or weaken the strength of the mighty. God has no limit. This is just a small bit of what God can do in his plans and in his in his greatness and his power. um God has limitless things that he can do for us and for himself and for his family and stuff like that he's building. Let's see here, let's go up to Job 40, and we'll read 1 through 7. says, moreover, the Lord answered Job and said, shall he that condemneth the Almighty instruct him? And he that reprove God, let him answer it. Then Job said, answered the Lord and said, behold, am I vile? What shall I answer thee? Will I lay my hand upon my mouth? Once have I spoken, but I will not answer, yea, twice, but I will proceed no further. Then the Lord said unto Job out of the whirlwind, and said, gird up thy loins now like a man. I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. So here, let's go to, let's see, 10. Deck thyself, so this is verse 10. Deck thyself now with majesty and excellency, and array thyself with glory and beauty. Cast abroad thy wrath, or the rage of thy wrath, and behold every one that is proud, and abase him. Look on every one that is proud, and bring him low. Tread down the wicked in their place. Hide them in the dust together, and bind their faces in secret. See, I will also confess unto thee, thine own right hand can save thee. So here, God's giving Job the power to be able to, gird up thy loins like a man. Prepare yourself, and then deck thyself with majesty and excellency. And then he gives Job instructions on how to be able to have victory in his life over everything that's happened here. It's with God's power. God gives him the power to be able to look at all the proud and bring them low. Take down the people that have been wicked and mean to him and stuff like that. And humble. He gives God gives him permission to humble people that have exalted themselves. The way up is down. You humble yourself, God doesn't have to do it, so God will exalt you. God will lift you up. Whenever you try to bring yourself up, that's when God will knock you down a peg. And that's exactly what Job's letting, or this is exactly what God is letting Job do here. Sometimes God gives us the power to be able to the power to be able to wield the baseball bat of righteousness, so to speak, and to be able to, you know, correct people. 'Cause sometimes, but sorry, my brain's not working. A second. So God doesn't always do things himself. God sometimes allows us to be able to do His will, and because he works with people, he works in real time, and this reminds me of a story. There's a somebody that was going around in NFL football games that they gave him some time. I don't know if it was like halftime or before a game, but he would make an announcement and said that if there's proof that God is real, let him send a sign, trying to be prideful and say, oh, well, there is no God, so I can say this without, anything happening. Well, one of the places that he was at, nobody said anything. Nobody did anything. He made that announcement with, just like, this is the last time that I'm going to do this kind of a thing, I think. And one of the football players ran up on stage, tackled him down, and then he went up to the mic and said, God was busy, so he sent me. And it was so great. I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, wow, that's awesome. And it's true. Right here, God's giving him the power to tackle down the people that were, against him and to humble them and stuff. And I bet the guy that he was going around and doing all that stuff got really humbled in, so let's see here. Just kind of a side note though. So 15, verse 15 and into chapter 41 is kind of like It's behold now behemoth, and this is describes a dinosaur. So that's just really cool. I might actually cover dinosaurs in the Bible at one point, but that's just a side note. So let's see here. Let's finish out with verse or chapter 42. We'll look at 10, 12, 13, and then 16 and 17. So this is Job answering the Lord and said, verse 1. Let's see, number 10. So here, the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends, and the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. And verse 12, so the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning, and he had 14,000. Oh, sorry. I thought I muted that. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 she asses. So that's a lot of livestock, and God gave that to him. And then 13, he also had 7 sons and 3 daughters, which was kind of Job's wife's punishment to be able to birth that many children in a later age, because she was very discouraging. I didn't get to cover what she did, but she told him, to curse God and die. That's the most famous line from her mouth, and that was after Job. God allowed the devil to afflict Job with all the sickness, except for he still couldn't take his life because God was still protecting him. And so the devil, afflicted him with every kind of disease that he could imaginable, and Job still had the fervor, the strength, the wisdom, the trust to God to be able to get through all of that and still not sin, and still not give up on God, and still didn't curse God, and he didn't do any of that. He had the strength that allowed him to be able to keep his morals and keep his convictions with God. And let's see, last one we'll look here. Verse 16. After this, Job lived 140 years and saw his sons and his sons' sons, even 4 generations. So Job died being old and full of days. So here Job lived for a very long time, 140 years. Then that's after however old he was. He's able to see so his sons, his grandsons, so his sons' sons, even 4 generations. So that would be, let's see, grandpa. No, so this would be he would have been a great grandpa. Yeah, because that's 4 generations. He was a great grandpa. His sons is, yeah. So even though his trial was absolutely terrible, it was very great. It was so devastating. Job, he was able to have wisdom. And let's see, Ecclesiastes 7 verse 11 says, wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. So Job knew that, and so he went through this entire thing with one of his main weapons being wisdom. And he had knowledge, and he had grace with just even though he felt terrible and he went through something that's nearly unimaginable. Well, it is unimaginable for anybody who reads this story and has not gone through something similar. He was able to have understanding, wisdom, strength, and we can have that too. One of the things God says is we can ask for wisdom. Solomon, he asked for wisdom, and God blessed him. Not only he could ask for a long life, he could ask for money beyond imagine, he could have asked for strength of his body, he could have asked for anything, but he asked for wisdom, and God gave him wisdom, and because of that, God also gave him some of those other things that he could have asked for. He was one of the richest people in history. He was able to. He had a lot of wives, which he shouldn't have done that. But even people who are wise still make mistakes. And but anyway, um, you know, God blesses people who ask for wisdom beyond just giving them wisdom. And this being his, Job's reward with the sheep, camels, oxen, and donkeys, uh being able to have all the money that he had double what he had before, and God gave him a long life because he was able to go through this trial, never give up on God, and was able to do it with wisdom. And if we can take these things that Job did and Job used, God can bless us in the same way, or even maybe not necessarily getting our rewards on earth, but it'll go towards our rewards in heaven. Because God keeps a record of everything that we do, and if we're able to, you know, follow God's plan and God's will for our life, that's how we can get treasures in heaven. There's a lot of things that Paul says in the New Testament about, adding treasures and stuff to our account in heaven. And we can live this life despite having trials through, people who would want to see us be taken down, laugh at us. God will bless us, even if we can't see it right away, because through this, Job went through a lot, and God didn't really give him much indication that he was actively right there, because it was part of the trial, and the devil lost 100%. So um just remember, God loves you, and he'll never put us through anything that we can't do without him. Forgive God and have a blessed day. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.